The cobblestone streets of the Rue du Faubourg Saint-Honoré are lined with the glittering storefronts of the world's most powerful fashion houses. But the true history of Paris is written in the invisible stitches of those who work in the shadows. Marie was a loyal seamstress, a woman who had spent 40 years in the humid, fabric-scented basement of the House of de Beaumont, her fingers calloused by millions of needle pricks and her eyes weary from decades of fine embroidery. She was the one the elite trusted with their most delicate garments and their most dangerous secrets. For Marie possessed the quiet discretion of a woman who understood that a single loose thread could unravel a dynasty. She lived in a tiny attic apartment overlooking the Seine, unaware that the antique gold thimble she had inherited from her grandmother was a tactile key to a $950 million Thorne legacy hidden within the vault of the de Beaumont archives. The de Beaumont family were the vultures of haute couture, a dynasty that had built their $950 million empire on the great aesthetic theft of 1920. The original de Beaumont matriarch had been a rival of Isabella Thorne, and during the chaos of the post-war reconstruction, she had stolen Isabella's revolutionary geometric silk patents, designs that utilized microscopic Thorne-engineered fibers to create garments that never lost their shape or sheen. They had rebranded the Thorne brilliance as their own, building a global luxury monopoly, while the Thorne name was erased from the annals of Parisian fashion. They treated Marie with a calculated social injustice, viewing her as an antique tool rather than a human being, never imagining that the loyal seamstress was the only person alive who knew the secret stitch required to unlock the Thorne's frozen assets. The miraculous karma was a slow, elegant tension, a thread of justice that had been winding through the Beaumont Atelier for 100 years, waiting for the needle of truth to strike. The financial topic of the de Beaumont Group was a matter of intense international scrutiny, as they prepared for a multi-million-dollar public offering that would solidify the control over the European luxury market. But the group was facing a material crisis. Their latest collection, based on the stolen Thorne patents, was suffering from structural fatigue. The fabrics were losing their luminescence and disintegrating on the runway, a phenomenon the engineers couldn't explain. The de Beaumonts had the blueprints, but they lacked the organic resonance, a secret Isabella Thorne had encoded into the fiber's molecular structure. The miraculous karma of their theft was a total brand collapse. Without the Thorne spark, their $950 million valuation was a hollow shell. Marie, repairing a 1920s Thorne original in the basement, noticed that her gold thimble began to vibrate with a soft, amber glow whenever it touched the ancient silk, a signal that the legacy was ready to be reclaimed. The catalyst of the miraculous karma arrived during the Centennial Gala at the Louvre, where the House of de Beaumont was set to unveil the Isard gown, a dress they claimed was their greatest masterpiece. As the lights dimmed and the model stepped onto the runway, a localized magnetic surge caused the dress's fibers to glow with a blinding, golden Thorne light. Driven by an unshakable sense of duty, Marie stepped onto the stage. As she touched the hem of the gown with her gold thimble, the fabric didn't just shine. It unspooled, revealing a hidden layer of sovereign microfilm that projected the original 1920 Thorne deeds onto the walls of the museum. The amazing turnaround was official. The loyal seamstress was recognized as a sovereign custodian, and the $950 million legacy began its total unmasking of the de Beaumont fraud in the heart of Paris. The shock that rippled to the Louvre Gala was a moment of absolute aesthetic terror for the de Beaumont dynasty. As the Thorne sovereign network synchronized with Marie's gold thimble, the House of de Beaumont's entire digital inventory, over a century of stolen designs, was automatically decrypted and projected for global fashion press to see. The unmasking was absolute. Every ghost design they had filed, every historical theft they had committed to bury the Thorne genius, was broadcasted to the French Ministry of Culture. The financial topic was an instantaneous global catastrophe for the family. The International Trademark Office received a sovereign reversion signal from 1920, effectively transferring the ownership of every de Beaumont patent back to the Thorne Marie Trust. The social injustice of the de Beaumont wealth, built on the exploitation of Marie's grandmother and the theft of Isabella's vision, was laid bare. If you are enjoying, remember to subscribe to the channel so as not to miss the next stories and activate the notification bell. The fall of the de Beaumont family was a spectacle of divine payback that left the Parisian elite in a state of psychological collapse. As the Thorne reclamation progressed, It was revealed that the family had been using child labor in their offshore silk mills to maintain their $950 million margins, a direct violation of the Isabella Ethics Code of 1920. This was the ultimate social injustice, a crime against the very humanity that fashion was supposed to celebrate. Marie, however, did not seek to burn the house down. She utilized the legacy to establish the Atelier of Integrity, a non-profit foundation that provided fair wages and ethical training for the next generation of Parisian artisans. The amazing turnaround was a total reclamation of the city's artistic soul. The loyal seamstress had become the sovereign of silk, proving that the truth is the only fabric that never fades. To understand the miraculous karma of the Paris legacy, the narrative must travel back to the spring of 1920, inside a hidden studio in Montmartre. Isabella Thorne had met with Marie's grandmother, a young seamstress who had helped her develop the sovereign weave. She knew that the de Beaumonts were already moving to seize her work through industrial espionage, so she had worked with the master weavers of line to hide the karmic thread within the very structure of her prototypes. She had hidden the master deeds within the Isar gown, knowing that only someone with the tactile integrity to handle the fabric with love would ever trigger its release. She was investing in the long fate, ensuring that her $950 million legacy would eventually return to hands of a woman who understood the value of every single stitch. The social injustice Isabella had witnessed in the workshops of Milan and Barcelona was the blueprint for the justice Marie was now delivering in Paris. The reclamation of the Parisian luxury market reached its most intense phase when the Shadow Board attempted to launch a digital embargo against the newly formed Thorne Marie Trust. They utilized a high-frequency market algorithm to suppress the value of the Thorne Marie bonds, hoping to bankrupt the foundation before the $950 million could be used to restructure the industry. The financial topic was a cold, multi-million-dollar siege. The Shadow Board believed that if they could disconnect the Thorne technology from the global supply chain, they could force Marie into a settlement of silence. But the miraculous karma was already woven into the sovereign silk. Isabella Thorne had designed her fabrics to act as biological data nodes. As the Shadow Board's digital attacks hit the Thorne network, the garments themselves, worn by ethical influencers and activists across the city, began to resonate with a specific frequency that automatically neutralized algorithms. The surprising revelation was that the clothes were the firewall. The inevitable karma for the de Beaumont heirs reached its final conclusion in the vault of the forgotten within the French National Archives. Marie, utilizing the $950 million legacy, discovered the original sealed confession of 1922, a letter written by the de Beaumont patriarch on his deathbed, admitting to the theft of the Thorne patents and the illegal imprisonment of Isabella's Parisian partners. The letter had been hidden by a corrupt archivist who had been receiving shadow dividends for 80 years. The financial topic of this discovery was a total international moral restitution. In a single week, the de Beaumont name was legally stripped from every museum wing and public square in France. The $950 million legacy was not just awarded to Marie. It was restored to the artisans through a series of public education and fair trade initiatives. The unmasking was absolute, and the social injustice of 1922 was finally, globally corrected. If you are enjoying, remember to subscribe to the channel so as not to miss the next stories and activate the notification bell. The final unmasking of the Shadow Board's European fashion director occurred during the Paris Fashion Week of 2026. As the global elite gathered for final show, Marie activated the Thorne frequency through the runway's acoustic system. This wasn't just a signal. It was an integrity pulse that reacted with the stolen materials in the board's private couture collections. The surprising revelation was that the board members' luxury suits and dresses began to hum with a discordant silver light that unraveled the seams in real time, leaving them exposed in the center of the auditorium. The unmasking was immediate and televised to millions. The fake icons of the industry were led from the show by the very seamstresses they had once exploited. The inevitable karma was a public, psychological disintegration of their authority. Marie sat in the front row, her gold thimble a symbol of a century of integrity, realizing that the truth had finally, beautifully, come back into style. The narrative back and forth takes us to the winter of 1921. inside a small, candlelit apartment in the Marais district. Isabella Thorne sat with Marie's grandmother, watching as she meticulously stitched the Thorne ledger into the lining of the Izar gown. They were architects of material sovereignty, women who believed that the true power of an object lies in the honesty of its creation. Isabella knew that the de Beaumont family would try to control the media and the courts, so she worked with Marie's grandmother to build a tactile safeguard into the garment, a series of reinforced nodes that would only yield to a Thorne-specific biometric signature. She was investing in the long fate, ensuring that the $950 million legacy would wait until the world was ready for a leader who valued the worker over the brand. The social injustice they faced was a fuel for a design that was future-proof, a technology that would only unlock its full potential in an age of total transparency. In the present day, as the spring flowers bloomed in the Luxembourg Gardens, the full scale of that final stitch became clear. The new Thorne Marie technology was not just creating beautiful clothes. It was inspiring a global movement of ethical consumerism. The financial topic was the rise of the Thorne Integrity Score, a new global standard for luxury goods that guaranteed they were created without theft or exploitation. The amazing turnaround was a total global victory for the Thorne bloodline. The loyal seamstress was now the figurehead of a worldwide revolution. The unmasking of the old world's fake elegance was complete. The $950 million legacy was no longer just a Parisian fortune. It was a foundational capital for a new age of human creativity, built on the miraculous karma of a woman who never lost her thread. The resolution of the Thorne saga in Paris was a finished masterpiece of cultural healing. Marie turned the old house of de Beaumont into the Isabella Thorne Museum of Artisan Justice, a place where the history of the Thorne betrayal and the miracle of the reclamation were documented for every child in Europe to see. The shipping and logistics topic was now about connecting the sovereigns, as the Thorne Marie network linked up with the global hubs of Milan, Shanghai, Barcelona, Munich, Seoul, Brussels, Athens, Cape Town, Stockholm, and London. The amazing turnaround was a total cultural awakening. Marie stood on the roof of the museum, looking at the Eiffel Tower, and realized that the loyal seamstress had provided Paris with a new heart, one made of silk and truth. The 106-year-old debt was paid, the karma was served, and the truth was finally eternally at home. If you are enjoying, remember to subscribe to the channel so as not to miss the next stories and activate the notification bell. The final unmasking of the Shadow Board's Parisian laundering hub occurred in the heart of the Place Vendôme, beneath a historic jewelry boutique that had been used as a financial black hole for decades. Victor from Brussels, Sarah from London, and Marie from Paris met at the entrance, utilizing their synchronized Thorne keys to unlock the massive vault. The surprising revelation was not more gold, but the missing Thorne textiles of 1923, a collection of thousands of original designs and fabric samples that the de Beaumont family had stolen and hidden to prevent the Thorne Reformation from spreading. The financial topic was a total global creative asset reclamation. The amazing turnaround was absolute. Every brand the Shadow Board had used to build their fake luxury was now legally challenged by the Thorne ancient integrity. The unmasking of their empty status was complete, as the world realized that the elite had never created anything. They had only ever stolen. The resolution of the Paris legacy was a moment of profound internal peace for Marie. She visited the small, quiet room in the archives where her grandmother's original needles and threads had been hidden for a century. She didn't bring a trophy or a check for $950 million. She brought the Izar gown, its golden fibers now perfectly synchronized with the heartbeat of the city. She laid the gown on the table, where it caught the afternoon sun and shimmered with a perfect, internal amber light. "The stitch is finished, grandmother," Marie said, her voice a steady hum of integrity. "The name is back on the silk. The world is guided by the light." The silence of the archives was filled with the rhythmic sound of the city's new artisan workshops, a sound that felt like the applause of 1,000 honest souls. The divine destiny of the Thorne family had reached its Parisian peak. The unstoppable fate was a finished tapestry, and the final thread was as strong as the Thorne silk and as brilliant as the loyal seamstress who had woven it. Paris was a city of justice, its soul finally at rest. The story was finished, and the justice was eternal. If you are enjoying, Remember to subscribe to the channel so as not to miss the next stories and activate the notification bell. The digital dismantling of the de Beaumont Empire began not with a line of code, but with the vibration of a single golden thread. Marie, now installed in the private archives of the Place Vendôme, utilized the $950 million legacy to activate the Thorne loom, a 1920 mechanical computer that used silk patterns as a programming language. The financial topic of this analog revolution was a shock to modern tech giants. While they relied on silicon and electricity, the Thorne legacy utilized the natural piezoelectric properties of the sovereign silk to create an unbreakable communication net. As Marie fed the Isar gown into the loom, the amazing turnaround became a physical reality. The fabrics didn't just unravel, they spoke. The microscopic Thorne-engineered fibers acted as acoustic recorders, having absorbed decades of conversations within the de Beaumont Atelier. The unmasking was visceral. Every bribe paid to the French Ministry of Trade, every industrial sabotage against rivals, and every conversation regarding the original 1920 theft was broadcasted in high-fidelity audio to the global press. The social injustice of the fashion cartel was laid bare, proving that the walls and the clothes really did have ears. The de Beaumont heirs, led by the arrogant Julien de Beaumont, attempted a final legal blockade, claiming that the recordings were a violation of privacy and that the $950 million were protected by corporate sovereignty. But the miraculous karma was already woven into their own contracts. Isabella Thorne had helped draft the original 1921 artisan labor laws in Paris, inserting a karmic clause that stated any asset built on intellectual theft would automatically revert to the original creator's lineage upon the discovery of physical proof. The financial topic was a total asset evaporation. As the Thorne loom processed the evidence, the de Beaumont's global bank accounts were systematically frozen by the Thorne Sentinel. The amazing turnaround was absolute. Marie, who had spent 40 years being told she was expendable, was now the only person with a biometric key to the industry's survival. The unmasking of Julien's fake heritage was complete when the loom revealed that his own grandfather had been a failed merchant who only succeeded by framing Marie's grandmother for a crime she didn't commit. If you are enjoying, remember to subscribe to the channel so as not to miss the next stories and activate the notification bell. The narrative back and forth takes us to the autumn of 1922, where Isabella Thorne stood on the Pont Neuf, watching the sun set over the Seine. She was meeting with the master weavers of Lyon, men who had lost their livelihoods to the Beaumont's industrial machinery. She entrusted them with the resonance map, a complex embroidery pattern that contained the encryption keys for the entire Thorne Paris network. The silk will remember, she told them, her eyes reflecting the amber light of the city. When the needle of the honest strikes the thread of the true, the empire of the lie will fall. She was investing in a long fate, placing the $950 million legacy not in a vault, but in the hands of the working class. The social injustice Isabella had witnessed in the sweatshops of Barcelona and the archives of Brussels was a fuel for a design that was fundamentally resistant to infinite greed. She knew that the de Beaumonts would dominate for a century, but she also knew that the truth is a patient weaver. Marie, in the present day, felt the weight of that century as she finalized the sovereign pattern. The psychological unmasking of the de Beaumont directors occurred during the Audit of the Soul, a mandatory hearing conducted by the newly formed Thorne Marie Integrity Council. As the directors sat in the velvet-lined boardroom, Marie didn't present them with spreadsheets or legal threats. She presented them with a Thorne mirror, a piece of high-tech fabric that reacted to the vibration of deception. As each director attempted to justify their family's 106-year-old theft, the fabric in the room began to change color, turning a deep, bruising violet that signaled a total moral failure. The financial topic of this visual justice was a global sensation. Investors, watching via the Thorne Sovereign Net, realized that the de Beaumont brand was no longer a symbol of status, but a symbol of corrupt resonance. The amazing turnaround was a total global market rejection. The $950 million legacy was utilized to buy back the de Beaumont's distressed shares at a fraction of their value, effectively nationalizing a luxury house into a public artisan utility. The social injustice of planned obsolescence was the next target of Marie's reclamation. For decades, the de Beaumonts had produced garments designed to fall apart, forcing the public into a cycle of infinite consumption. Marie utilized a $950 million legacy to launch the Thorne Perpetual Collection, garments made from the original 1920 geometric silk that were self-repairing and lasted a lifetime. The shipping and logistics topic was transformed as the Thorne Paris network began to coordinate with Sarah's London hub to provide durable dignity to the world's working class. The amazing turnaround was a total victory for the Thorne bloodline. The loyal seamstress was now the strategic architect of a new, sustainable economy. The unmasking of the board's empty progress was complete, as the world realized that true luxury is not something that breaks, but something that endures. The inevitable karma for the de Beaumont family was a total public erasure of their influence, as their names were removed from the fashion calendars and replaced by the names of the seamstresses who had actually built the industry. If you are enjoying, remember to subscribe to the channel so as not to miss the next stories and activate the notification bell. The final resolution of the Parisian silk was a masterpiece of industrial and emotional alchemy. Marie authorized construction of the Isabella Thorne Artisan Plaza, a space where the history of the Thorne betrayal was documented in a series of massive, glowing tapestries. The shipping and logistics of the Thorne Empire were now a circle of radical integrity, where every meter of silk was tracked by the Thorne Sentinel to ensure zero exploitation. The amazing turnaround was a finished tapestry of justice. Marie stood on the balcony of the Place Vendôme, looking out at a city that was finally honest about its past. The 106-year-old debt was paid, the karma was served, and the loyal seamstress had finally, eternally, found her place in the sun. The unstoppable fate of the Thorne family was a golden light that would never be extinguished, a story of a woman who became a queen by simply refusing to let the thread of the truth snap. The inevitable karma for the Shadow Board's Parisian financier, a woman known for her merciless elegance, arrived during the Vendôme public disclosure. As she attempted to flee the country with $100 million in stolen assets, the Thorne Sentinel automatically locked her private jet's flight systems. The unmasking was visceral. Every screen in the airport terminal began to display her financial intent as she tried to negotiate her way out. The miraculous karma was absolute. Marie, watching from the command center, didn't feel anger, only a profound sense of rhythmic resolution. The financial topic was a total karmic foreclosure. The financier's assets were liquidated to fund the Thorne Marie Global School of Craft, ensuring that no artisan would ever again be a victim of the digital divide. The amazing turnaround was a total, global victory for the Thorne bloodline across all 10 cities of the first season and the new hubs of the second. The social injustice of the invisible creator was finally addressed on a global scale. Marie utilized the Thorne Sovereign Network to establish the Thorne Standard for Creative Integrity, a global system that ensured the primary worker always received the largest share of the profit. The amazing turnaround was a cultural revolution. The Parisian elite were forced to realize that the people they ignored in the basements were the very people who held the keys to the future. The shipping and logistics topic shifted to the logistics of character, as the Thorne Paris network became the primary provider of ethical energy and luxury technology for the world. Marie stood on the steps of the Louvre, watching as the Thorne flag was raised for the first time in a century, a simple woman who had changed the world by never losing her soul. If you're enjoying, remember to subscribe to the channel so as not to miss the next stories and activate the notification bell. The final resolution of the Paris legacy was a moment of profound internal peace for Marie. She visited the small, quiet room in the archives where her grandmother's original needles and threads had been hidden for a century. She didn't bring a trophy or a check for $950 million. She brought the Izar gown, its golden fibers now perfectly synchronized with the heartbeat of the city. She laid the gown on the table, where it caught the afternoon sun and shimmered with a perfect, internal amber light. "The stitch is finished, grandmother," Marie said, her voice a steady hum of integrity. "The name is back on the silk. The world is guided by the light." The silence of the archives was filled with the rhythmic sound of the city's new artisan workshops, a sound that felt like the applause of 1,000 honest souls. The divine destiny of the Thorne family had reached its Parisian peak. The unstoppable fate was a finished tapestry, And the final thread was as strong as the Thorne silk and as brilliant as the loyal seamstress who had woven it. Paris was a city of justice, its soul finally at rest. The story was finished, and the justice was eternal. The unification of the inner circle reached its zenith as Marie from Paris and Sarah from London synchronized their Thorne hubs. Utilizing the $950 million and $3 billion legacies, they created the Anglo-French Integrity Corridor, a high-speed logistical and financial bridge that bypassed the shadow board's compromised banks. The financial topic was a total sovereign market decoupling. The amazing turnaround proved that the Thorne heirs didn't need the old system to thrive. They were building a new world on a foundation of radical loyalty. The unmasking of the board's global influence was accelerated as more Thorne descendants began to emerge from the shadows of history. The social injustice of the 20th century was being systematically erased by the 21st century Thorne Renaissance. Marie sat at her mahogany desk, the gold thimble reflecting the light of a new dawn, and realized that her quiet life in the basement was a necessary crucible for the power she now wielded. The final unmasking of the de Beaumont's shadow vaults occurred beneath the historic Opera Garnier. Marie, Sarah, and Victor from Brussels met at the entrance, their Thorne keys resonating in unison. The surprising revelation was not more gold, but the missing Thorne journals of 1924, a collection of thousands of pages detailing Isabella's vision for a unified global economy of truth. These journals proved that the Thorne family hadn't just been victims of theft, but architects of a future that the elite were too small to imagine. The financial topic was a total intellectual sovereignty reset. The amazing turnaround was absolute. Every modern luxury brand was now required to pass the Thorne integrity test, or face total market exclusion. The loyal seamstress had not just reclaimed a legacy, she had reclaimed the dignity of the entire human race. If you are enjoying, remember to subscribe to the channel so as not to miss the next stories and activate the notification bell. The final scene of the Paris reclamation took place in the small, quiet courtyard of the Atelier, where Marie had spent 40 years of her life. She had turned the basement into a sanctuary of the record, where the original Thorne Paris blueprints were on permanent display for the public. She sat on her old wooden stool, the gold thimble resting on a velvet cushion beside her, and felt a final, profound peace. The 106-year-old journey was over, and the truth was finally, beautifully at home. The unstoppable fate of the Thorne family was a golden light that would never be extinguished, a story of a seamstress who became a queen by refusing to let the world steal her soul. Paris was a city of the truth, its golden architecture reflecting the brilliance of a justice that had finally, eternally been served. The miraculous karma was complete, and as Marie walked out into the warm light of the Parisian evening, she knew that the thread of the Thorne legacy would play forever in the hearts of those who sow with honesty. The unstoppable fate of the Thorne family was a finished tapestry, and the final thread in Paris was as elegant as French silk and as pure as Marie's character. The $950 million legacy was not a burden of wealth, but promised protection for those who create in the shadows. The amazing turnaround was a total victory. The loyal seamstress remained the guardian of the Atelier, her hands still moving with the same humble grace as when she stitched her first garment. The unmasking of the old world was complete, and the new world was guided by the Isabella Protocol. Paris was a city of the truth, and its justice was eternal. The story of the loyal seamstress remained the guardian of the Atelier, her hands still moving with the same humble grace as when she stitched her first garment. The unmasking of the old world was complete, and the new world was guided by the Isabella Protocol. Paris was a city of the truth, and its justice was eternal. The story of the loyal seamstress was a masterpiece of miraculous karma, proving that no matter how long the shadows last, the light and honest soul will always find its way back to the light. If you are enjoying, remember to subscribe to the channel so as not to miss the next stories and activate the notification bell.